Hi, my name is Rod Freeman. I'm from Port Townsend, and I started this company called Mongrel Guitars, and so far, like, I'm the only builder, and but I hope maybe later to dream, because something's starting to happen with this outfit here. I started out like with the name Mongrel because I didn't like the word Frankenstein, you know, for like a parts caster. So mongrels are cuter and not so scary as Frankenstein. So so my idea was to make a guitar where I can find parts like all over the world, you know, like, and just they're laying around gathering dust, doing nothing, and I could, you know, through the wonderful medium of eBay, you know, or other, you know, things, bring them into my little spot there and turn them into these beautiful instruments, you know. And my other idea was that I didn't want to like make it like a factory where you do a line of like one guitar and you make a million of them or a bunch of them and send them out. I want to make every one a complete individual guitar and not make any two the same, because I kind of got an artistic background and stuff. So I look at a Fender, you know, Leo Fender created these wonderful things back in the late 40s and 50s. Being the Telecaster, Stratocaster, and Jazzmaster, and those are basically the formats I work with. And I look at these things like a blank canvas, because there's so many things you can do with what Leo created there. So many things you can do with a Tele and a Strat, not just visually, but functionally, you know, like it's unlimited the amount of electronic kind of weird things you can find to do with them, and little tweaks you can make here and there. And so through the years, I've sort of come up with some ideas, little tricks that I can do that somehow lately I've been getting a lot of feedback from pros and stuff that they're like the best guitars they ever played or something. So I'm like pretty humbled by that. But also I kind of, you know, when opportunity knocks, you know, seize the moment. And so that's kind of what's happening for me here with my Mongrel Guitars. So I'm going to show you a few here and kind of let you know some of my ideas of them. So let's see, where do I start here? Let's see, I've got like a bunch of Strats, and I've only got 2 Teles here because Old Town Music got most of my Teles down in Portland. They've sold 3 in the last month. So maybe I'll start with this one. This is one of my favorite ones, and this is like a Strat with PAF. You could zoom in on it here, with a couple PAFs wound by my best pickup guy in New York, John Benson, and his pickups are available too. When I started out with him about 7 years ago, he was just working out of his house. He had a couple kids and he had a day job, but I bought a bunch of like little guys pickups, you know, because they're less expensive than Seymour Duncan or Lindy Fralin or Lawler. But these guys are winding stuff just as good, if not better, because they're just starting out. And they're actually winding their pickups themselves, you know, not like some of the big guys are. So John Benson pickups, PAFs, and I make a little card for each one, you know, so even when I sell the guitar, I can kind of remember it, put it in my file, and you know, remember what I did, you know, because I build so many, I can't remember every little detail of them. So it's got the Benson PAFs, and in the middle is a half-breed. It's a Texas company, and it's a Rio Grande half-breed. And it was a real hot guy, so I tried it out in between these guys. It worked out perfect. It just blended with them really well. So the way I do these guys, the Strat's got 3 pickup compartments, right? And usually they're single coils like, you know, these guys are, but it's fun to put humbuckers in a Strat. You get a really, you know, people have been doing that since the 50s, you know, grabbing a Gibson humbucker and slapping it in their Strat, and they've come to call it a fat Strat. And so it's got the regular Strat 5-way switch, which gives you, you know, this guy, then these two, then the middle one, and then the middle and the neck, and then just the neck. But to me, that isn't quite enough. You've got other capabilities on a Strat. So what I always do is down here where the usual Strat has a usual tone knob down here, you know, they got 2 tone knobs. In the original Strat, this tone knob was for the neck, and this tone knob was for the middle. They didn't have one for the bridge. You know, that's one little criticism I have of Leo. You know, I mean, so we've improved on it a little bit by throwing a blender knob down here. So what I do is a master volume, master tone. This is a tone for all three of them. But this little guy down here, okay, I'm playing in my bridge, and maybe it's a little too trebly for me. Well, if I back this off a little bit, it's like a rheostat. It starts bringing in my neck pickup. And I can bring this in increments every little bit. You've got all these different tones. You back it off all the way, and you're running just like a Gibson in the middle position. You've got your bridge and neck in parallel with that little, oh, nice. Thank you, James. I should bring my finger puppets in. I've got my two finger puppets here I brought along with me. Maybe I'll bring them in for when I take a break here to drink some coffee. But anyway, so this is a really freaking functional guy here, because look, you know, here, you know, I've got in my bridge here, and I'm playing, and I got the bridge and neck pickup in parallel. Well, now if I flip up here into the second position of a Strat, that brings in my little single coil here. So now I've got all three pickups running at the same time, which is really fun. And in a regular Strat, you know, with these three single coil pickups, so like say this guy, you know, you've got these famous Strat positions on the second and fourth position. Then you get this kind of ducky sound, quacky kind of sound. Well, with the blender, you know, I can get not only, you know, these two, but now I get all three of them, and it gets even a more quacky kind of sound. Also, another thing too, a lot of people call this position where you're, you know, running the neck and the bridge the Gilmore position, because I probably wasn't the first guy, but David Gilmour, Pink Floyd, is really famous for his solos being played with the neck and bridge pickup. He had a little switch, so you just either had, you know, both of them or one or the other. But with the blender, you've got all these little increments in between, and when you're playing clean, you can just find all sorts of different cool sounds with that. It's a relatively simple operation too to put a blender in. It's two freaking wires. They go to the switch. One goes to the hot lead from the bridge, one goes to the hot lead from the neck. Boom, you got it. Minimal amount of wire, minimal amount of resistance, which is part of my Mongrel philosophy in wiring. Is the least amount of wire, the better. And wire has resistance, capacitance, and kind of messes with the sound coming straight from your pickup. So that's one of my Mongrel philosophies, is little wire. I'm doing a lot of mods to Jazzmasters because they've got so much wiring in them. If you take out the upper circuit and just wire them with a four-way switch, oh man. Anyway, I'm going to get some Jazzmasters in here pretty soon. If you want a Mongrel Jazzmaster, you have to go to Portland, to Old Town Music, and I hate to make an advertisement for another store, but we got to work together, right? You know, all of us, yeah.
Hey man,
Okay.
if we don't work together, we work apart.
Exactly, and things fall apart. But if you work together, it makes guitar worlds, you know, even more extreme and beautiful.
Ooh, look at this.
Oh, okay. Oh, the Uncle John's Buick too. I got to mention that the reason I call Uncle John's Buick, I name all my guitars because they're all individuals. And if someone buys a guitar, they can change the name. But again, I caution them, because if you change the name on a boat, you know, it'll sink. And I guarantee that does happen, because I've experienced that when I was over in the Mediterranean. Anyway, I got it. My Uncle John, he was kind of a character, and he kicked the bucket, you know, and he left me his Buick, you know. So thing was this huge freaking Buick. He used to tool around, you know. He was from Bellingham, you know. And so I sold it, and I thought, I'll put some money and make a guitar, you know. So I found this body, you know, from MJT. It's really a Relic. He's the best Relic guy in the world. I can't take credit for the Relicing on these, because I only use the best I can find. So MJT out of Missouri, this guy is awesome. He's on eBay if you want to buy a body for your guitar. That's the place to go as far as Mongrel recommends here. And he's a master of early Fender paint. Everything's 100% nitrocellulose lacquer. He gets every body's perfect cut on a CNC machine by Wildwood of California. And they're just the best. Anyway, I had this body and I thought, oh man, I'll use this guy. And I found out it's burgundy mist, you know. So Fender used nothing but car paint, you know, back in the 50s. So I looked it up and sure enough, burgundy mist was a freaking color they put on a Buick, you know. So I went, yeah, you know, man, I got it. So I got a really nice all parts neck here from my guy down in Florida. He's the best neck Relic guy I've found. Although he's really hard to work with. He's got 5 kids and he's building guitars down there too. But he does a great job on a neck, and he used to have them on eBay, and now I'm just working directly with him, and I have to order them, and he says he'll be there in 2 weeks, and I wait 2 months. But you know, Jose, he's cool. And they come with a bone nut, perfectly Relic. The frets are all rolled just beautifully with the Relic tuners, high quality tuners. You can't get any better than that for a Mongrel. So I slapped and I love the maple one-piece Fender neck. I think that was a stroke of genius. Jose likes the big fat frets, which I like. So I put it together. I decided, well, we'll have the tan leather interior on Uncle John's Buick here. So I got the cream-colored pick guard there, you know. And who were we going to put in here? Well, he had these 3 nieces that were kind of wild that used to borrow his Buick all the time and tool around Bellingham and stuff. And so these are his 3 nieces here, you know, playing around here. And then you know how the Buick's got its 3 chrome identifying sort of chrome things, they're little vents on the hood. So I couldn't resist, since Fender has the 3 knobs there, to do the chrome job there. And they got a little rubber on them, so they're pretty nice, work really nice. And then on the electronics on my guitars, I do copper shielding all over the inside. I've got some other tricks I do inside. Maybe I won't tell anybody those, but I alter the body a bit on the inside for resonance. And that seems to be making a difference because I put them up against ones I didn't do that to, and I can denote a tiny hair of acousticy properties that it throws into the Strats, a little bit of better resonance. Also, it lightens the body a bit, which kind of gives you some hints of what I'm doing. And then my philosophy is the least amount of wire, so all the wire lengths are really short, basic minimum. I use nothing but Russian military grade oil and paper tone capacitors, and I usually match them with whatever pickups I'm using. Of course, a lower capacitance for humbuckers, a little higher for single coils. And depending on what you want for the sound, depending on how the pickups sound too. And then they're all top quality CRL. The wire's all cloth covered pushback wire, so it's all top of the line stuff. I put a treble bleed kit in all my guitars because it really makes a difference when you back off on the tone, on the volume. I'm sorry, the volume. You don't get that treble loss. So I always do that to make it as high a quality instrument as I possibly can. So I'm going for the beauty and I'm going for the functionality. So I want something that you can freaking hang on your wall and show off like a piece of art, but you can take down and freaking rip it up on stage. And I've got a couple of them, I guess, on tour from some people that I sold to down in Portland. So pros are buying them. And I'm just humbled and excited by this, but I guess I stumbled upon something. Anyway, that's Uncle John's Buick, a total big fat Strat with the PAFs. Let's see, what do we do next here? Oh, here, one of the guys in the store here said this is his favorite guitar in the store. And I tell you, that's so humbling to have an incredible guitar store like this. I mean, even with Fender custom shop stuff, in fact, that's kind of been my goal, is to try and outclass them for a lower price, but or equal them, because you know, who can take away from the Fender custom shop guys? But a shop like this, to have people say that the store in Portland, I had a Strat in there called a Fullerton Flyer that I put together that is, I guess it's really rip it up, really good guitar playing woman came in there the other day and played every guitar in the store, and she said that was the best guitar in the store, and she was hot, you know. So that was another compliment I got that just extremely humbles me. Anyway, this is one of my surf series, and when I first started out, you know, I'm from Port Townsend, Washington, so we never got to surf, but we always worshiped the California guys back in the 60s, you know, with their surfboards and their California girls and stuff. And, you know, all we had was the Pacific Northwest, and nobody had figured out yet how to put on a wetsuit and go out to Nia Bay, which they're actually surfing in Washington now. So we always envied that surf scene, and I think I wore out a couple surf albums back in the day. So, and I love the sound of surf guitar. The little group I play with, we play a lot of surf, and we really like it. So, surf guitar is usually associated with Strats, but you can definitely play some great surf on a Tele, especially with that Tele bridge pickup sound that nothing else in the world sounds like. And I don't make usually Teles except this guy without the brass barrels. This is a Cabernita, but to me, this was one of Fender's main strokes of geniuses, was to take a pickup with no cover on it, mount it in a chunk of metal, you know, steel, so that the resonance of the steel, bolt it to the body, put the strings through the wood, put them through the metal, have them touch the bridge actually, go over brass saddles, which are connected to steel poles that go down and hit the bridge, that it brings all the resonance of the wood, the steel, the brass, and the pickup together to make a sound that absolutely no other guitar in the world has. That's just freaking awesome. So I love Teles, I love that sound. So I pretty much stick to that recipe with the brass saddles. These days, with the technology, the compensated saddle, which intonation's always been a problem with Teles with the straight saddles. This solved that problem. It didn't compromise the sound at all, so I always do that. And this is the thin line style of Tele. Again, the body's the MJT, the neck, so Jose Rivera. And the wiring's just standard Tele, except it's got a 4-way switch, which I love to put in Teles, because in Tele you've got 3 pickup positions. You know, you get bridge, both of them in parallel, which gives you a nice sort of out of phase sound, and then your neck. And again, the pickups I used in this guy are the Bensons, Benson Custom. They're Alnico 5, the big wire to let through all the goodness, 42 gauge wire, and relatively light wound, where you get those pretty Stratty, or not Stratty, but Tele tones, and Strats too, the same way. If you have a low wind on it, the less amount of wire you have in your pickup, the prettier that pickup's going to be, but the less output, the less punch. So both styles are good. It depends on what kind of style guitar you play. But I love that pretty sound, so these are relatively low wind, more traditional. The neck's a 6.6K and the bridge is 7.6 to give you some punch there. Benson pickups. So you've got the neck, but now with the 4-way switch, you pop it up here. You get both these pickups in series, so they turn into like a humbucker, and the output goes up. The output is the sum of both of the outputs of both of these pickups. And because you've got more output, the treble goes way down. So you get a wonderful jazz position in your Tele. And all my Teles have that. Well, except some of the earlier ones, which I don't have many left. But I'm putting 4-way switches in just about all my Teles. Kind of tricky when I get a soap bar here. It's kind of the opposite in the switch. But this will give you a real nice jazz tone. You can roll your treble back a little bit, volume back. You just wonderful jazz tone out of a Tele, especially these thin lines where you get this little kind of acoustic-y overtones because of the hollow top and bottom. Although there's still, a solid piece of swamp ash right through this guy's. This, again, swamp ash, beautifully Relic. I don't know if the camera can pick up the crazing and checking in this thing, but it's just freaking work of art by MJT of Missouri. Anyway, that's the Surf Angel. And I know, you know, surf, you got, you know, for me to play surf, I got to have my whammy bar. But, you know, Dick Dale, the godfather king of surf, hardly ever used that whammy bar. He did his, you know, it's kind of rolling it down. So you can play surf with this guy. It's real nice. Surf Angel. And I call all my thin lines angels. I got my personal one's the Black Angel, but I've got the Twilight Angel I just sold down in Portland. But I think this pickguard, the way they did it, kind of has a reminiscence of an angel wing, you know. So I call them my angels. Plus, I just they bring wonderful things to whoever plays them because they're so beautiful sound of them. Oh, and all my mongrels come with their tag. I got the name of the guitar, which you're welcome to change if you buy it, the price, and then on the other side I've got what it's made out of, the pickups, what kind of magnets, and all the little details that's inside the guitar. Okay, what do we got next? Oh, since we're on tellies here, this one I recently completed. Again, an MJT body and a Jose Rivera neck. This one's got a lot of aging on it, you know, where the guy smacked it up. But I was kind of against this aging thing when it first came out, but now I love it because you get a guitar that's well aged. It feels like you've had it for like 10 years. You know, it's just all broken in. It's like an old pair of jeans or Chuck Taylors or something. You know, they just like mold to your body. Now this is a Cabronita body with the TV Jones pickups. Cabronita is a relatively new Fender innovation. They basically based on these TV Jones pickups, which are sort of a takeoff on the old Gretsch Filtertrons of the 50s, one of the early humbuckers. They're built a little different with the magnets, and they have just their own wonderful, incredible sound. The standard Cabronita, Fender Cabronita, has like a volume and a switch, you know. But I threw a tone control on it because I think that's a very important part of a solid body or any semi-hollow electric guitar is your tone control. It's a standard thing. For years back in the 70s, 80s when I played guitar, everyone just dimed their tone and their volume. And I finally found out that the reason for it is the pickups were so shitty that you had to dime them out to get any tone out of them. But these days, if you use really good pickups, it all of a sudden opens up your volume and tone controls to actually work and change to these beautiful sounds. So I love a tone control. You can really do a lot with that for your tone, of course, depending on your amp and stuff. Anyway, this guy is Cabronita style. Fender, I think they came out in like 2009 or something. And this one, you could make up a lie about it. That's what relicing is all about. Is you can lie and say, "Yeah, man, I got this guitar. It's like 40 years old," which it absolutely couldn't be because they didn't even have these back then. But it's got a nice relic job. And again, now some of you may not have noticed, but a lot of people look at this and they think it says Fender, but it doesn't. It's my last name, Freeman. I'm Rod Freeman. And so since I've got a lot of letters that are in Fender's name, including the first one, I made a takeoff on Fender's logo with this fat spaghetti look there. And I got a high quality vinyl sticker that will stay on there forever. But if the person who buys it, wants to really lie about it, and hand one of these guitars and say, "Yeah, this is a real '57 Strat, man, that Buddy Holly played or something," they can do that by just peeling off my Freeman name, which is like my artist signature, which I don't care, go ahead, and you can put a Fender decal on it, so you can make up your own story about the guitar and fool your friends. But most of these, like this guitar, the only Fender part I think is the bridge. It does say Fender on it. Now some of you may notice that the control cover plate on the door, I call this the door because the finish kind of looks like the old door on the shed outside, kind of, you know. But when I finished it, it had a Tele kind of style cover, and all I had were ones with holes in it, you know, for the controls. So this had to be, so I looked around, I finally found one, but in the meantime, you know, I had to cover up the thing here. So I went down and bought a private property sign and just cut it out and shielded it, you know, and put it on there, and it fit perfect, so you don't even need screws, so you can just look in here at my wonderful electronic workmanship, and maybe you can zoom in on that guy there, you see. And you can see the copper shielding and the high quality parts in there, you know, and the big fat brown Russian military grade tone capacitor, which on this guy I think is running, I think it's it's a .0223, like, you know, what you want for a humbucker, because it doesn't cut out a lot of the highs. So, and then you can see the little treble bleed kit here with a oil and paper capacitor and a little resistor in there, and that makes it so when you turn the volume down, you get no loss of highs. And you can see it's a Switchcraft top of the line switch there. See all the wiring in there, all cloth covered, pushback wiring, my wonderful soldering jobs, and there it is. And oh, by the way, if you want to buy this guitar, you just got to have it, but you don't like this, I finally got through the mail a chrome Kelly one that doesn't have any holes in it, and I'll gladly throw that in. And while we're at that, all my guitars are guaranteed. I just live here in the Northwest over in Port Townsend. I come to Seattle all the time. I go to Portland all the time, where my girlfriend's got a big old house that we can stay at. And these are guaranteed. If anything goes wrong from the workmanship, I will fix it free of charge. So that's my Mongrel philosophy, man. Get you a guitar, you pay for it, it should work. Okay, this is one of my old ones that hasn't sold, so I brought it in. Another Strat. I think the reason it hasn't sold is it's relatively expensive. I did drop the price like $200, just because I got to move these things. And this is got Joe Barden pickups on it, which Joe Barden is famous for working with Danny Gatton, one of the best Tele players on earth ever was. And they worked together to develop a Tele pickup. It's called the Danny Gatton model that Joe Barden put together. Now he expanded out, he does a Strat setup, and this is his fat Strat setup. And they're the most expensive pickups on earth, and that's why this guitar is expensive. But they sound almost more like a Strat than a Strat. You know, I mean, they really have captured the sound, but it isn't quite Strat, but it's so close you hardly can notice. And they're totally noiseless. You can just play in a room full of neon lights and you're not going to get any noise out of it at all. So that's what Joe Barden's done, and that's why they're so expensive. The wiring and the engineering on them is really a lot higher than most pickups. There's a lot put into these. So I've got these on here. I just wanted to try them out. And they are great. I've actually played this guitar and gigged with it a few times because it's just incredible. And you can take it into any bar, you know, it ain't going to make any noise. And again, this guy now is a little different. When I first started putting the blenders in, they were so exciting that I put them in the place of the volume. So it's got the blender here, so you can blend these two guys in. Your volume's here. On the volume, you have a coil split for your humbucker. So with the push of your finger, it pops right up. So it's a push-push, not a push-pull. Because to me, a push-pull, you're playing along, okay, you want to split your coil. Okay, I've got to reach down, grab that thing, and pull up. That's a lot of thoughts, gets in the way of your playing. With my guitars, it's a push-push. You're playing, boom, you're in single coil mode just like that. You don't even have to hardly think about it. So push it down, you're in humbucker mode, and man, it's a great sounding humbucker. And of course, now your master. And this is a no-load tone control. One of the older ones where it kind of clicks in. And that, I pretty much use those on just about all my guitars. The no-load tone is really great because it's, you know, on the wiper, on the potentiometer, at the end of it, it's scratched off, just like the end. So it basically just bypasses the whole tone circuit, and you don't have the resistance and capacitance that you get just in that little circuit, which kind of goes with my philosophy of the least wire, the least amount of places the electrons have to travel, the easier it is, the more they feel like they did when they left the pickup. And so that's a really cool thing. So I do that on all my tone controls. It's no load. I've got an Emerson Pro no load tone controls that I've got on my newer models that you don't have that little click at the end. And if you want me to switch it, I could do that. Another thing too in my electronics, I don't know, this is kind of one of my secrets, but maybe I'll let it out, and I'm not really schooled in electronics. I've just kind of got stuff from experience. But I know a few things about it, and one thing I know is that the electrons come from the ground. So as I'm putting together the electronics, I think of that, and I think you want a good supply of electrons. So I kind of concentrate on the grounding of the bridge and the control cavity to cover it with this copper foil, which just contains lots of electrons, and bring that all into my ground. So I've got, there's plenty behind the electronics to feed into the circuit, and to keep it nourished, in my really sort of naive ideas of electronics. But it seems to work for me. Anyway, this has got not a Jose Rivera neck. This is a Fender production neck out of Ensenada. It's the 60th anniversary one, boy oh boy. And there's two series of necks, both of them made in Mexico, that were designed in the Fender custom shop in Corona. And by the way, all this prejudice against Mexican Strats, now hey, we're thinking about racism in this country, I mean, I went to the Corona factory and it's nothing but Mexican people working in there anyway, so, what the heck, what's the deal on that? And sure, they're less expensive, a lot because of the labor, a lot because of the components, but I'm telling you, the wood and the cut and just the overall feel and integrity of the guitar made in Mexico is just as good as in America. And so these necks are top quality. And there's two series I really like. One's a deluxe series, deluxe player series. The whole guitar I don't care for, but boy, their necks are nice, and you can find them on eBay. People take the guitars, tear them apart, and sell them for parts. These necks go for around 300 plus. The reason they're so desirable is they're just top quality, but they've got a 12-inch radius, which is a Gibson radius. So you're a Gibson player, you want a Strat, you can't get used to the neck, come down and try butter out here. That's the name of it because it plays like freaking butter, and it kind of looks like butter here. It's very lightly Relic. I got to admit, I put that buckle rash on there, so it's got real mongrel buckle rash, but it's a very lightly Relic guitar. As a person owns it, it'll chip and it'll crack up even more than it is. You notice it's got the yellowing. This guitar was aged from the point of view that it was a white guitar back in the day, and this is an aging process here. You can see it's darker aged in certain places. Mark Jenny does just a fabulous job of Relic, and he's the best in the world. So it's butter. It plays like butter. It's got a 12-inch radius neck. Oh, the other one is, and I've got that on, I think, that guitar. Yeah, the sleeper here, and this isn't the deluxe series, but it's, again, an Ensenada 12-inch radius neck made in Mexico, but every bit as good as any Fender neck you're going to get, or any neck for that matter. And this is the Deluxe Players Series. I think it was the Players 60 Strat. But it's got a 12-inch radius, unlike a 60 Strat. But it's got, again, this one, the 60 Strat, does not have the truss rod adjustment at the headstock like the Deluxe Series does, which is a little easier to adjust your neck. You don't have with this one you have to, and old Fenders too, you have to take the neck off to adjust it, but it's really not that difficult, and it gives it that vintage feel. These as well, you might see this little guy here, it's a plug. These are old 50s style necks with the truss rod adjustment at the heel, which I usually put on my kind of Relic guitars because it makes them more authentic. Anyway, this is Butter. It's a real sweetheart. If you know Jason Gossel, he's one of the greatest guitar players in the world and local guy. He's got like 5 or 6 bands that play around the Seattle area here. Jason said this was his favorite guitar. If he had the money, he'd buy it. So that's an endorsement for it. And you might notice my little piece of blue tape here. A lot of people don't know it, but Fender tremolos, actually they're a vibrato, but they call them tremolos, have a little spring in here that keeps your whammy bar tight, and if you take the whammy bar off, they'll fall out. So most of them don't have it because people don't know that happens. I always put a little piece of blue tape on it to keep the spring in there when the whammy bar isn't in. Okay, so we got Butter. Okay, now we're going to do, these two here are very similar. I'll get them both out here. Oh man, turn that into a Woody. All right, that's really cool. Okay, and this is the Scarlet Tart. And this is one of my Leo Brown series, because Leo made them and they're brown, And, Eric Clapton had Brownie, and stuff. So this is my Leo Brown. They're both takes on 50 Strats. And I'm going to cry when either one of them sells or they sell, because I've played these guys a lot. I've gigged with this one a lot, and oh man, this is the other one. Jason Gossel said that one and this one he would buy if he had the money. And again, it's my format, all shielded with copper foil, volume, master volume, master tone, blender, 5-way switch. Now, this 57 Strat, these again are Benson pickups. He's my favorite winder guy, although I've got a couple guys, actually there's other guys that are as good, I think. Young guys, the pickups are inexpensive. You don't have to pay $250 for a set of Lindy Fralins. I put Lindy Fralins up against Bensons. I actually prefer the Bensons, okay? Bensons are like $110. You can buy them for $110 or so online. And they are every bit as good as a $250 set of Lindy Fralins, according to Rod Freeman here of Mongrel Guitars. And that's my own opinion. And there's probably a lot of people that will disagree with me, but you can include Lindy Fralin and Seymour Duncan and Jason Lawler and these guys that are just asking exorbitant prices for their pickups, And anyway, this has a set of Benson pickups on it. The neck and the middle are Alnico 5s, running about 6.2K and about 6.3, and that's just slightly hotter than stock. Kind of comparable to around 58. I've done studies on Fender pickups, and these old guys back in the day, they got together and they would check the capacitance on Fender pickups, and they've in this old electronic book I've got, it's got all the average winds on all the Fender pickups from Strats from 54 up to 1970, and you can see that in the start they were very low wind pickups, kind of more like probably this one, and peaking at about 58, about the Buddy Holly era, 57, 58. They peaked out where they were running over 6K, some of them. And again, the pickups then were hand wound by Abigail Ibarra and other people in the Fender factory, again, of Mexican descent. These people are great people who could put together stuff, so don't put down Mexican guitars or any of that stuff. Don't be racist, okay? But Abigail Ibarra wound these pickups. So a lot of times they were different. And Seymour Duncan and those guys kind of let the cat out of the bag when they started tearing these pickups apart and finding out why they sounded so good. And the secret was a thing called scatter winding, is what John Benson does. And these are Brandon wound pickups by a guy, Jared Brandon, of the Midwest, somewhere in the Midwest. He's winding great pickups, but his prices are going way up. Or any of these people, the cat got out of the bag that did scatter winding. When Fender sold out to CBS, they got pickup winding machines, and that pickup winding machine wanted to be efficient, so it would just feed the wire in right stacked as close together as they could, you know. And so, you know, it was like the wire was just one on top of the other, one right next to the other. They sounded kind of sterile, you know, they didn't sound as good as these old pickups. That's why Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton would buy a bunch of Strats and go through them and try and find these certain pickups that had a different mojo. And these are the old pickups from the 50s and early 60s that were scatterbound. In other words, a human was feeding the wire in. And so they couldn't do it like a machine, you know, they'd overlap a lot. And the grip on the wire, sometimes it'd be loose and it would make the wire go in kind of loose, and sometimes they'd get stressed out, you know, and tighten it down and the wire would go tight. And so Seymour and the guys all figured this stuff out, and so let the cat out of the bag. That was the secret. And, you know, it kind of makes sense. I mean, look at the telephone poles. I mean, do they put the wires close together? Why do they space them out? Anyway, I talked to this real electronics guy, and he said there's a name for it. It's some kind of like unpronounceable word capacitance or something that happens. And so the scatterwound pickups are quieter. They're not as susceptible to 60 cycle hum. They sound better, and every one sounds a little different. But what these young guys are doing now is they're getting their own recipe of when to tighten up, when to loosen up, how many wraps to put on, when to scatter it, you know, how to scatter it. And it's just a million. I mean, when you're doing 8,000 winds, there's a lot of room to be creative in there. And that's what these young guys are doing. That's why these, I've got pickups. Let's see. Well, there's another guy, New York here, the Sleeper, a guy, Prima Pickups. His name's Mike Meyer. Yeah, Mike Meyer. Isn't he famous? Well, no, this is the pickup guy. He just sold a set to Dave Murray of Iron Maiden, and that's a set of his pickups. He's another young guy that's just doing incredible stuff with pickups. I've got a guy named Alexander Pribora in Russia, in Moscow, and he's winding some insane pickups that I think the last 3 guitars I've sold in Portland, pretty high-end guitars, had his pickups in it. The guy's, I think he's as good as Benson. There's another guy in Croatia that's doing Q pickups. So I'm putting a plug in for all these young guys who are selling pickups at a decent price and not trying to, you know, buy a Fleet or Mercedes or buy a Swiss Chateau or something like some of these guys are doing in the United States. Anyway, this is the Leo 57, super fat neck, fat frets. I believe what Yngwie said, that most of your tone comes out of your neck, and you can tell that. Get your guitar feeding back. Just tap on that neck. It just explodes. Tap on the body, not much. So these necks are really important. So a big fat neck gives you a really different tone, a big fat tone. And it's really cool. That's why Yngwie uses the big oversized headstock, because he wants more wood. Well, the way Mongrel does it is these big fat necks, which kind of threw me at first when I first played one, but you know, after a while, you really get used to it. It supports the back of your hand. It slows down your fatigue when you're playing. You're not always having to hold out, you know, with the gap. Really nice. So both of these have the fat necks. And again, they come with a Mongrel guarantee, and this is just pretty much as close as you're going to get to a 50s Fender Strat that's been sitting around in a closet mostly, because it's a very light Relic job. You got one chunk out of here and a little buckle rash that I think I probably put on. But very incredible guitar. And again, the necks look old, the guitar looks old, it's brand new. All the components are brand new and guaranteed. Okay, now this guy, oh man, this Scarlet Tart. She is a beauty, and it's super light. The body, I make up these little cards for all of them because, you know, I'm a graphic artist, and I still do a lot of artwork and stuff when I get the time. But I make up these little cards for each one, you know, and sometimes I kind of do a quick one, you know, but sometimes I kind of get into it. It's like 3 in the morning, you know, and I put all that stuff on. And then I'll do a quick flash. On the back, I kind of put like how much I paid for the different parts, and then I kind of look at it and I figure at my rate of, you know, $2 an hour, how much I'm going to charge for this guitar, you know. So that's what I do. And it's a labor of love, you know. I'll put one of these. I'll put this guy up against any Fender Custom Shop Strat, and this won't sound any worse and may sound better, you know. And it'll be like a quarter to half the price, okay? So that's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to put Fender Custom Shop out of business. That will not happen. But I'm just trying to raise the standards of guitars like they have been doing. So I'm tipping the hat to Fender Custom Shop, but sorry, I can do it a little less expensive with my Social Security check and my small teacher's pension. So this is a Scarlet Tart. Again, it's got the Brandon wound, a classic wind, and this one's, the bridge is a 6.2, the middle's got 6, you know, they're all a Nico 5 42 gauge wire, standard what Fender used, but the neck's under 6, so it's a 5.9, so it's starting to really get that, it does have that real pretty Fender chime, and I like to, a lot of times the middle pickup is really underwound, but this one's a little hotter, so that when you're playing in your neck and you go into these two in a parallel circuit, you don't get that drop in volume like you usually do. So I really like that in a guitar because I really like these second and fourth positions, and I like to be able to like a really good one too that you can do is put it in your second position, you run in these two guys, and then you go, oh, this is already all the way back. You got your blender, so you put a different knob for the blender because there's maybe a tone control. You put that, you got all 3 pickups going, and you can play this really wonderful rhythm with a real soft, real super out of phase sound. And then for a lead break, you pop it up here, and you've got the Gilmore sound with these 2 pickups. So you cut out your middle one, and it boosts the volume a bit, gives you a nice little alternative lead tone to the basic Fender, you know, hit the bridge pickup kind of thing. Again, wonderful aging job. I actually did a little bit of the aging on this myself too, just from using it, because it's just an incredible guitar. And most of my guitars, I make them kind of for myself. It's like, what kind of guitar would I like now? You know, I'm like real fickle. And I play one guitar for a while. I keep thinking, well, what would happen if I did this? And so I make them kind of for myself, and then I'll play them a while and break them in. And also, when you play it a while, after a couple of days, you might notice something that you can improve on it. So I always do that. It kind of goes through a trial period where I usually make adjustments on the pickup height, things like that, to just really dial it in. Maybe on the intonation, you'll let it break in, let things settle, let the neck settle, and re-intonate it so it's in the best possible condition it can be in by the time I decide that I'm going to let it slide on to a new home or something. Anyway, I'll cry when these two go, that's for sure. And so this is Scarlet Tart. And okay, now here's an unusual one for Mongrel. Oops, I can't get it off the stand. Do a Relic. Now this is one, I did the finish on this, and I got a body from Mighty Might, and they're a guitar body and neck company. I've used their necks. Their necks aren't as finished as a all-parts neck or Fender neck. You've got to get it. You've got to dress the frets a bit, you know. But they make good necks. They make wonderful bodies. They're perfectly cut. And I got this from the Stratosphere in New York for a pretty good deal. It was raw, and I finished it in sort of a lavender sunburst. I stained it and then put about 20 coats of lacquer on it. I really like the ash. It's a swamp ash, extremely light. What was it? yeah, the body was basically 3 pounds, 3 ounces. So this is something you can just play all night and it won't hurt your back at all. Now, the unique thing about the sleeper here is I didn't do the wiring. I've used some pickups from a guy in New York, the guy I mentioned before, Prima Pickups, and he's gone for sale too. He's a little more expensive. He's real bombastic and he just brags himself up big time. But when I first ran into him, I know this guy's a blowhard, you know, but I tried some of his pickups and he actually backs it up with real mojo. He really knows what he's doing. And like I said, he just sold a whole, you know, pickup set to Dave Murray of Iron Maiden, so he must be doing something right. I've used some of his Tele pickups. They're incredible. I just sold one here. In fact, the Dirty Dog that sold right here in this store just about a month ago, just a dirty old black Tele without even a pick guard, all beat up, had a set of his pickups in it, Prima pickups. Now these are his Liberty series pickups, which are really low wound, and they're the prettiest pickups I think I've ever heard. And he calls it his classic wind. And, oh wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, they're like, the capacitance on the neck is like 4.7, 4.8 on the middle, and 5.7 on the bridge. They use Alnico 2, which is a little weaker than an Alnico 5, but not as weak as an Alnico 3. And they give you a little different sound. The magnet is a different composite. They don't have quite as big a pull, but they've got their own character. Alnico 2 is a very popular, and Alnico 3. Now you see that in a lot more pickups these days. It used to be only Alnico 5. Now they've got ceramic magnets on the big heavy metal guitars, you know. They've got Alnico 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, and I think they're even inventing new ones. But the most popular, of course, is the 5 and the 2 and the 3. These have 2, so they really have a unique sound. There's a guy in Seattle here, what's his name? CE. He plays a lot around here. Freaking great player. Said he really liked these pickups. The other thing about this is, excuse me, is the wiring I didn't do. And I ran into a guy through Mike Meyer of Prima Pickups, a guy out of Florida, and gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. Oh, I didn't even write it down, damn it. Kelling Sound. This guy, he's like the freaking guru of wiring. And I should have a picture of it with me. Anyway, the wiring under there is like the master guru, you know, Swami of freaking wiring. And he even puts little shrink wrap over the solder ends of the wire. You know, I mean, it's just meticulous detail. And it's got 16 different sounds with it. In fact, whereas the tag for the sleeper, I've got to get it. It comes with a set of instructions. In fact, I think I've got them here, but I could, you know, it's like a page of instructions, yep, on how to do it. It's got two either push pulls, because he wired it. I use push pushes, and it's just amazing, you know, different sounds you can get out of this guy. Anyway, that's the sleeper, finished by Mongrel, a good 12-inch radius fender neck, and some really cool knobs. And these mushroom knobs, so for a push-pull, I always try and get these mushroom knobs because they're easy to grab a hold of. And again, it's got the blender. It's got a blender in it too. But it's just a treat to look at that wiring. And then what else is the last thing I got here? I guess, oh, the last one, no, I think I got them all. Holy shit, I did it. All right, well, this is Rod Freeman of Mongrel Guitars, Port Townsend, Washington, of the Great Northwest, signing off and wishing you a wonderful guitar playing session in the near future.